let's kick it off. We're at 12:03 mark. So thanks for everyone for joining the webinar. And for those that couldn't join, this will be pre-recorded and be sent your way. So just want to do some introductions here. You'll see me. I'm Andy. I'm your face of the show right now. I'm your moderator. We have two great speakers from Flow from two diverse functions within our organization. We have Lawrence Eckstein who's our director of sales for the USA, and we have the very pivotal role of application engineer with Jonas Santos. So I'll just kick it off, Lawrence. If you could just give us a little introduction, and after Jonas, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. As Andy said, my name is Lawrence Eckstein. I'm the U.S. Director of Sales here at Flow. I've been with the organization since last year, March, 3 years in the EV charging industry, originally starting with a company called Wallbox and helping to bring that organization into North America. And before that, a decade and a half in rental car, which I think gives me a unique perspective on the auto industry as a whole. Hand it over to Yomna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yomna Santos. I'm an application engineer at Flow. I've been with Flow for a little over 2 years now. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, and essentially our team helps with the site design, site support, installation support. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, and let's get into it. So, what we'll be discussing today is what's happening. We'll just do a quick overview of what's happening on the industry. How does Flow and how do we play a role in what's going on with the EV transition? And for the people joining this call, most importantly, what to consider when getting started with the EV charging, especially in that dealership setting. And then we'll wrap it up with just the solutions that we provide. And towards the end, please put all your questions in the chat. We'll take a bit of time towards the end to answer all those questions with our great speakers here. So just to set it up for EVs are here. The investments are globally monumental. We're seeing $1.2 trillion coming from all the OEMs transitioning in production, developing battery technology. So there's a lot of investment coming this way that's helping to transition people from or make the choice for a viable choice from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. And we see the highlight here is there's not just the OEMs investing, governments are investing billions into EV infrastructure and production, and more models are coming out this way. And growth for this in the segment has been year after year, hitting double-digit numbers in this industry. Lawrence, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think what's really exciting is if we look at this industry 5 years ago, if we were to ask anybody if they're interested in purchasing an EV, that number is probably sub 15%. Whereas when we ask the same question today, over 50% of the US population of car drivers are considering an EV as their next purchase. And this trickles upwards. We look at what the government is investing through the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Act, our CFI grants, the amount of incentives that are being poured into our industry. I really think that EVs are now at a position where we're really going to see the takeoff. And what Flow's here to do is to help you align yourselves as a dealership group to be well positioned for this EV revolution.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. And I'll kick this one off for you. I think you actually have a recent buying experience, or you're in the market shopping for an EV right now. So I think you can actually speak to some of these points right now.
I am. I'm a huge EV advocate, but I am slightly hypocritical in that I still drive my internal combustion engine. Being that I am in the market for EVs, I've had some interesting experiences. I also make it a point when I travel, which is quite often, that I always rent an EV so I can see what the charging experience is like and also test drive a few cars. Firstly, Andy, I'll touch on the point that you brought up. I was recently in a dealership. My salesperson had to be very knowledgeable. I was really impressed by his knowledge of EV charging, battery size, etc. However, I overheard somebody else buying an EV, and I'll tell you right now, it was not a cheap one. It did not have a small battery. And the consumer asked the question to the salesperson, well, what do I do about charging at home? And the salesperson's response was, well, you could use the one in the trunk, which is a level 1 charger, plugs into a 110-volt outlet. It'll charge that BMW iX in 3 months. However, you can also buy something, like a Tesla charger. This is a BMW dealership advertising another car OEM. So the experience, that customer's experience probably placed a lot of doubt in how do I charge my car. So it's imperative that auto dealerships are enabled by charging companies to have the resources and the knowledge to properly communicate how, where, and when to charge your EV.
That's awesome, Lawrence. And
additionally, I can touch on public charging experiences, as I've rented EVs as a whole and had experiences where I've pulled up to a charger, clear and concise instructions, plug in, charge, and walk away. That's exactly what we're looking for as EV drivers. And as an EV charging company, that's actually Flow's main focus, making charging simple, accessible, and reliable. Now, I've had other charging experiences where I pulled up to a charger, maybe 50 kilowatt DC fast charger, only delivering 19.2 kilowatts. And that charging cable without cable management is lying on the ground. And that charging cable on the ground means I have to pick this heavy thing up, carry it over to my car, and plug it in. So one, I just got dirty because I just touched the cable that's lying on the floor of a parking garage. Two, that thing's heavy. I'm confident that I can pick up a cable. It's not a big deal. But if it were my mom in the same situation, I would question her ability to do so, as she's slightly disabled and maybe not able to, doesn't have the strength to lift that cable off the ground and drag it over the car. So really ensuring that the entire solution is in place, not just a charger for the sake of having one.
No, it's a great point, Lawrence. And I know we'll definitely touch on the importance of reliability in the coming slides. So, Lawrence, I know this is your world right now. You're in touch with all the dealers in your neck of the woods, and I'm sure this is what some of your text messages look like. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what are some of the concerns that some of these customers that you're speaking to are experiencing?
Absolutely, and again, to a point I made earlier, it's all about when choosing an EV vendor, that you ensure that not only do they provide a great product, but they're able to provide a full solution in education and resources. So this is an exact conversation that absolutely could happen on a daily basis, whether it's myself or someone on my team. The argument that EVs are expensive. Well, you know what? If we show the life cycle and ROI on an EV, we can show the customer that, hey, within 3 years, guess what? You're going to be in the green on your EV. And the technology is not really going to change much. We might have battery sizes, we might have more efficient batteries, but in the end, everything in an EV is essentially, the vehicle itself is not the most important thing. It's all about the software and the technology. And that's the thing that'll evolve. So if you're driving an EV that's a couple years old, you have nothing to worry about, because your OEM will go ahead and update the software and the firmware to optimize that vehicle's performance, regardless of the year of the vehicle.
And that's true for charging as well, right? Someone that invests in a charger right now, the concern.
Absolutely. Yeah. If we look at Flow as a great example, we're constantly updating our app. We are constantly updating our software to optimize it, not only just to what we think or our product team thinks is what the customers need, but we actually are listening to what the consumers have to say. We're speaking to the customers on the ground, using our chargers on a daily basis to ensure that we are providing the best possible experience. And of course, there's going to be concerns over what many car manufacturers are doing with J3400, or the charging standard formerly known as NACS, or the Tesla charging standard. Any EV charging company with whom you work that has a solid reputation and provides a solid product will have a NACS solution or J3400 solution when the rollout occurs. We're still looking at 2025 until the OEM commitments to transition to J3400. So in that year timeframe, 5 to 10 million EVs will be sold with a CCS connector or J1772 connector. So, and again, Flow being positioned and understanding the technology as it evolves in our space, we're going to be well positioned to not only build new products with the J3400 connector, but also have the ability to retrofit any product in the field as we see necessary.
Oh, awesome, Lawrence. Thanks for that explanation. I know our viewers are definitely appreciate that insight. So Yona, I'll let you kind of tick this off. You know, Lawrence is our great sales guy, but we definitely want to hear some of the technical sides of the EV charging world and what to consider. Or actually, sorry, Lawrence. Just kicking it back to you. I jumped ahead there. So
no problem. I don't mind talking about Flow.
Ambassador, so I want you to enjoy this slide.
I love talking Flow, as I'm sure Yomna and Andy can certainly attest. Who are we? Well, we're not new to this space. We actually formed our company in 2009. Currently, we have 100,000 plus chargers sold. Across those chargers installed, we have a global 98% uptime. Customer satisfaction score of 89%. Now, all of these factors play into experience. And when choosing an EVSE partner, you want to ensure that accessibility, reliability, and affordability are at the forefront of their actions, at the forefront of their product development, and the forefront of their message to their customers. You know, we pride ourselves not being a hardware company or a software company. We pride ourselves on being an EV charging company because this is what we do. You know, our founder and CEO, Louis Tremblay, built this company in 2009, right out of college, and helped to build a charging network across Canada, currently of which we have over 65% of the market share. And as we enter the US market in a big way, we're taking all the lessons that we learned in Canada and applying the best possible solutions to our partners across the United States.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence.
Now, this here is kind of, well, we're a dealership. You know, why do we care about charging? Well, where do we collaborate with your partners, your OEM? Well, obviously on the dealership front, we cut across every vertical, providing residential charging. We have very stringent interoperability testing where we're going to take every new EV that hits the road, bring it into our lab, and run every single charger in multiple charging sessions to ensure that flows like water down a stream. Workplace charging is something that I think we're going to touch on a little bit later. This is how we enable and encourage and provide incentives to our workforce. I think Andy's going to touch on a pretty relative customer to this conversation, General Motors, and talk about how we've helped to electrify their workplaces. And then again, public charging fleet, we touch it all and we collaborate on it all. And I use the word collaborate and not sell very specifically because we want to collaborate to provide the best possible solution for not only you as a dealership, but more importantly, your customers.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence.
And, you know, my words are words, but here's some of the partners with whom we work. GM, General Motors, you know, we all know that small organization here in America. Canada Tire is one of the largest organizations in Canada. We've provided charging for them for years. We're currently working on a mass rollout of EV charging with them. Nissan, another OEM, working with municipalities, Los Angeles, New York City, Montreal, Cleveland, Boston. All of these municipalities partner with Flow because we provide a service that, again, is focused on a solution and focused on reliability. I think Andy's going to touch on Mercedes a little bit. And lastly, you know, just showing Con Edison as a utility partner.
Right in your backyard.
Very true.
Yeah, no, and thanks, Lawrence. Just to mention, we've done major work with Mercedes-Benz Canada. We electrified all of their entire Canadian corporate dealerships. So getting them that full package to get them ready for the rollout of their EQ models. And similarly with General Motors in Canada, we have electrified over 341 GM branded dealerships. On top of that, we work collaboratively, as Lawrence said, to electrify their workplace fleets in the US. And Lawrence, could you give us a little insight why these major organizations chose Flow?
Absolutely. And I think it goes to the pillars of what we've talked about really so far. And truly the message that I'd like to convey as the overbearing message of this conversation today is the three focuses of affordability, accessibility, and reliability. Accessibility meaning that this is simple. You pull up to a charger, you have your Flow app, you're able to activate a charging session. But guess what? That's not exclusive to a Flow app or a Flow charger. If you're a user of a different network, say ChargePoint, and the closest charger to you is a Flow charger, or your workplace has put in Flow chargers, you're actually able to activate a charging session through your app that you're used to using. And we do that through different integrations and roaming partnerships. And this allows the expansion of the Flow network, but really provides a greater accessibility to EV charging as a whole. As we look at where we're headed, really we want, we're not going to pull up to an Exxon station only because we're Exxon loyal, but if the mobile station hits and our gas light goes on in an ICE vehicle, we're going to go to mobile. It doesn't matter. So that should be the mentality of EV charging, and quite honestly, the mentality of EVSE providers. So having that mentality, I think, really puts organizations in the mindset of, hey, this is really simple. And this is an incentive that we need to provide to our employees. It's going to increase overall employee satisfaction. It's going to want to come back to the office. So I think all of those factors really play into why Flow is a great partner for workplace charging.
Yeah, and Lawrence, we're heading into NADA, and I remember last year at the show in Dallas, one of the key feedback or the discussions I was having is dealers feel that EV charging is just a requirement to tick off by their corporate offices, and maybe not seeing the true value of how this can actually transform their business. Can you just give a little bit, in your experience, what have you been able to advise and see come to light?
Absolutely. I'll go back to the word that I use a bunch, which is revolution. Well, the revolution's coming, and it's here. And if you position your dealership as a knowledge base for EVs and EV charging, your potential is limitless. It's going to help increase your bottom line. Customers pulling up, they could go get an oil change done anywhere, but if they know you have chargers, they're going to come to your location to charge. Hospitality at the forefront. First-hand demonstrations, you can actually take a charger and plug it into a vehicle and show somebody how it works. That's going to help you make a sale probably better than anything else.
Especially
so that it's real and that it's simple.
Yeah, and the example you gave with the BMW when you were at the dealership,
Precisely.
That instead of talking EV charging, simple thing would have been to go outside and here's how it works. Here's a level 2 charger, DC fast charger.
Absolutely. Also recurring revenue. If you make these locations public, transaction fees, reduce your cost of refueling. The more EVs you have, guess what? Electricity costs a heck of a lot less than gas. Don't call Shell on me though, please. and lastly, and in one point that's not listed here, many of us as leaders within our organizations focus on ESG goals and sustainability goals, and putting in EV charging can help you quickly attain and even over attain those goals. And I think focusing on the customer and their overall experience can really just help your dealership catapult into this new generation of car sales that we're entering.
One point I want to add, Lawrence, we started off with saying, looking at EV charging as an opportunity to bring in, new revenue sources. And I can say that, working with Mercedes-Benz Canada, we were the exclusive provider of home charging with our Flow Home. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, numbers may have changed, but at one point, with the new sales that were coming in, they saw an attachment rate of new vehicle purchases to home chargers at about 75%. So it is a real opportunity for a lot of dealerships.
Absolutely. It's absolutely an added revenue stream. And, as much as we like to sell public chargers in the EV charging space, the fact of the matter is 70% of charging or more should be done at home or work. You know, if you have the ability to place a charger in your garage or at your home or your condo or apartment complex provides charging, that's really where it is. So, you know, talking about added revenue and ancillary benefits of EV charging, well, you're going to be able to have a brand new revenue stream that is just transactional, a line item on an invoice for you to sell a home charger to a customer by providing them something that they truly need.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we talk about recurring revenue, right? I think the term recurring revenue is tangible, but also if we view it as a broader scope, if I come in and I buy an EV and I have a terrible experience, I'm going to buy an EV from another dealership next time. But if you help to educate, you help to provide a solution, you're able to explain how this whole thing works. That's this new technology that I know nothing about. Guess who I'm going to come back to for my next EV purchase? It's going to be you specifically. So there's an intangible part of recurring revenue too, not to mention the word of mouth marketing, which we know is our best friend or our worst enemy. So let's make it our best friend together.
Yeah, and I'll just complement that point with saying, reading surveys and reports that are coming out from like Cox Automotive. One of those things is potential EV. There's obviously the interest in EVs, but then one of the hurdles that when surveyed was the knowledge base at dealerships just made someone comfortable. And those dealerships that are excelling in their knowledge of EV charging definitely are picking up those sales. Like you said, I'm going to change where I shop.
Absolutely. Not to mention taking in some government incentives to boot to help some boost some revenue on the finance side.
Never bad when there's extra money around, right? So, Lawrence, thanks for that part of our discussion. I want to kick it off to Yona. This is officially her part of the presentation. Let's get, she can very much speak to, what are the key fundamentals to look for and consider when getting ready to bring EV charging to your dealership.
Yeah, for sure. So before we dive into the details, let's take a step back and just look at the different types of charging out there. So there's the level 1, there's level 2, level 3, which are the DC fast chargers. Level 1, as Lawrence mentioned, it's something that is typically provided with your new EV vehicle. It's more of a trickle charge, so it can go up to only about 1.4 kilowatts. It's more for emergencies and backup. The one that's more utilized in the industry are the level 2s. So these are more widely available, and they can go between 7.2 to 19 kilowatt or so. This is the type of charging that you would have likely at home or even on some curbside for some on-the-go charging. Now, for the DC fast chargers, they are the ones that you would find for in-transit applications. So for a quick top-up on the go, you'll find them in commercial spaces, on curbsides, and this is just for your quick top-up.
Yeah, and I'm just the marketing guy here, so I'm going to lean on you for this one. For level 2 charging, for the people who might be asking this question, like I have, is 19.2 kilowatts one of the fastest achievable speed on a level 2?
Yeah, that is the fastest actually that is allowed by the standard SAE standard. So this is the fastest that's on the market. There are a few vendors that are out there that actually operate. Flow is one of them, and we'll get into the reliability and the details of considerations on those ones.
Thanks, Yuma. Sounds good.
All right, so just to get into the details of how to get started. So you would want to look for a supplier or vendor that will really hold your hand throughout the whole process, especially if you're new to this. If you can have that supplier kind of help you with reviewing your OEM requirements, it can help you with the quotes, you can ask them for a site evaluation, or if they can help you recommend someone for you as well. This will be really good guidance for you. So you should also inquire about rebates and incentives, and your EV charging vendor should be able to provide you with high level of what those are and what's available on the market. So make sure you have these considerations in mind, and inquire about your options. And of course, the installation, having someone that knows your site, and a vendor that can provide you with recommendations of the installation team that they can recommend would be really good.
And I want to touch on you with point number 3 for site evaluations. I know you play a big role into this. Can you explain what it is what is site evaluation and the value of that can bring to a customer?
Yeah, for sure. So at Flow, for example, we have a dedicated team, the application engineering team that I'm part of, that can help you step by step assess your electrical capacity, your electrical infrastructure, and how that goes with your OEM. And they will our team will hold your hand throughout the whole process in terms of what you need, and assess your site accordingly.
And I want to actually tap in Lawrence here. Your team, especially when it comes to rebates and incentives, I know you're actively always in those discussions. And also, I think you want to talk about there are vendors out there that don't have such a flexible installation option, like if, for example, like Flow does.
Absolutely. The benefit of working with an organization like Flow is we're vertically integrated. So what does that mean? It means that everything that we manufacture and develop is done in-house. So hardware, software, firmware, etc., is all manufactured in-house. So that means that we have native communication between our chargers and our software. And that was a whole lot of jargon, and I apologize. It means that our hardware and software are family. They're not friends. They go together and speak to each other, which also means if something goes wrong, we have direct insight into what's going on in the charger. We can even predict what's happening in the chargers as if something may go wrong, therefore pushing a software hardware update through, or a software firmware update through. If it does happen to be a hardware situation, we'll know about it in our network operations center. So when we send a tech out, we'll actually have the right pieces there. So you're not going to be waiting for someone to come back out after the problem is diagnosed. And we're able to provide that service. And I think that's what really separates a vertically integrated charging company from someone who operates only hardware or only software. And additionally, every dealership has a different layout. Every parking lot's different. So I use this analogy a lot, is that all of the things that we build are put together like a Lego. Now, I don't mean if a piece is going to break off, you're going to step on it and hurt your foot. What I mean by put together like a Lego, we're able to customize the design and layout of the chargers. For example, we'll dive into product in a little bit, but our brand new Flow Ultra charger has 2 independent UI screens. You're actually able to flip one around, so you can have a pull-in gas station approach to make people feel like they're fueling their car just they have their entire driving life. So we're able to provide very unique solutions to fit all bills. And one thing that Yomna's team is experts at, if I don't mind, if I can boast about, the applications engineers here at Flow, we're able to do this on a level where we don't have to go out to every site. We utilize virtual tools, virtual site walk tools, virtual planning tools. We're able to provide a solution that you can see on paper that looks like it's a real solution before you invest any money. And I think that's really something that separates us. And I know you mentioned incentives, Andy, and
I was going to bring it up.
Guess what? It can be expensive. Especially if you need power upgrades, if you're power constrained. Again, Yomna and her team can absolutely provide solutions there. But how do I pay for this? What if this isn't a public charger? Well, Flow is actually approved on over 300 incentives, both on the utility and government side. And we're able to attach those incentives based on your geography and your use case to make the entire process easy. We have an entire incentives team that their sole focus is ensuring that Flow is approved, compliant, and makes the incentives usable for our partners by helping pair them to specific use cases.
Lawrence, I just want to touch on something. You mentioned full integration and all that fun stuff and the full package. I remember early on before starting getting into the business and the industry, use our Canadian example. Sorry, I'm going to be Canadian here. Pulling up to Tim Hortons, and I would see this little block with a cord just connected to a wood beam. No, no card readers or anything to start. It was just plug and go. Can you explain, like, why not just go with the option of just, hey, let me just buy a traditional or not a dummy charger, as we say it, and versus all this network connected features?
Absolutely. Now there's absolutely a use case for dumb charging, right? It serves a purpose in our industry. But in a vertical such as auto dealerships, you need to be able to track your usage. You need to be able to identify charging sessions. You need to be able to have an answer on your P&L for all that added electricity. And also, it's a great story to tell, hey, we paid X amount of electricity, which is 50% less than we were paying in fuel the previous year. So it creates a really exciting narrative to talk to investors and customers alike. Now, the other side of it is demand charges. We know that there's peak kilowatt times that exist within utilities. So what you're able to do with a smart charger is actually react to those through proper scheduling of charging times. And we're actually able to set up the chargers where during those peak kilowatt times, it doesn't charge at all, or as you only used the term before, a trickle charge until those peak kilowatt times end, thus saving yourselves a lot of money on charging and not having to pay out the time for peak kilowatt times. Now, if you do make this a public charging network, obviously you don't want to have to shut those chargers off. We do have the ability to set schedules for different pricing models based on the time of day. And Yamna and her team, what they are able to do is customize that model based upon your utility program and your location, your geography.
No, that's awesome, Lawrence. And I just want to touch on something. We talk. There's that point about comprehensive portfolio, and maybe Yona is the best one to. Or sorry, Lawrence, not to sidebar you there, but configuration options. And when that comes down to every dealer, I know every dealership is different in their land usage and their setup and everything. How can configuration options be in the benefit of a dealership?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, again, it goes back to your site needs and your vehicle needs actually is the most important thing. And so the varying speed options that are available on the market, does that meet your vehicle needs, or does it exceed it, or it does not meet it at all? So those are the things that we assess. We actually look at your vehicle specifications and see what option we have that can really fit within your portfolio. So these are, again, some of the unique services that Flow can offer for you.
No, that's great. And I think that leads us into perfectly when it comes to the hardware selection. There's a lot, I can Google right now EV chargers and I'm going to get 50 ads and push to my Instagram too. Like, what is the differentiation, or what should someone look for when they're looking at 3 different providers or however how many? What are the considerations?
Yeah, really, reliability is what you're looking for. You need
Lawrence's favorite word.
Yeah, it's something that you need for your business, right? And you need something that works. So this is really one of the most important aspects. So again, and if you're in a colder climate, make sure that you have a product that can adhere to those type of weather conditions. So yeah, again, reliability, weatherproofing, the build quality. Again, proactive monitoring goes back to what Lawrence was saying about vertical integration. You have that one point of contact and 24/7 proactive monitoring to make sure that if any issues come up, we're on it right away so that it doesn't slow down your business in any way. And again, engineering and service support, you want somebody that, that can sit by you and guide you through the entire process. And if you're having any issues, there is one person that you can reach out to support you. I think that's a very important, and I think it's understated in the industry a bit. But this is something, again, to consider when it comes to selecting vendors. redundancy, I put that one in there because with you want to have a backup in your system. So if your cellular connectivity is intermittent, for example, do you have a backup network? Can you find a vendor or a supplier that can provide you with some different options according to your network capability on site? And if one port is not operational, if it's a dual port system, if one port is not operational, does the other port work? So again, it goes back to keeping your business ongoing and just having that support there.
Yeah, and Lawrence, I want to touch on this. You've seen that you've coming from a competitor, and not to say anything bad about anyone in our industry. That's not the point. But when we talk about build quality, I know Flow positions ourselves on robustness. Our cases are solid aluminum. What are some of what can that actually mean in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. We touched on it before when we talked about our uptime and our relentless devotion to it. And really, functionally, every charger, every software does the same thing. You pull up to it, you plug it in, charges you, charges your car. The question is, how often do those chargers work? And if we look at the state of EV charging, especially DC fast charging as a whole, we're looking at, on average, about 60 to 65% uptime. There's networks that claim 95% uptime. At 95%, it means your charger does not work 11 days a year. That's a staggering number when you think about it, because if we're starting to transition from traditional ICE vehicles and fueling, how often have you pulled up to a gas pump and it not work? I can probably count it on one hand. So the focus on quality and uptime and reliability is something that really made me move over to Flow, just on that focus. I'm an advocate for Flow, obviously, but more so I'm an advocate for the industry. And I think Flow's mindset of devoting a lot of effort to ensuring that those chargers are running as often as possible is key. We have 120 chargers, curbside chargers, level 2, installed across the 5 boroughs of Manhattan. Those 120 chargers average at about 60% usage and 99.9% uptime. That's a really incredible figure to think about in some of the harshest conditions in the United States. And I don't mean weather. I mean, New York's a tough place. There's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of accidents, there's a lot of vandalism, a lot of theft. So having an organization such as Flow or similar vendors who take a parallel approach to how we look at EV charging, I think it gives a better overall customer experience, and focusing on partners who are able to provide that level of reliability really adds to where the industry can go. But focusing on on providers who don't can really start to detract and take away from the growth that we're seeing in the EV space.
Thank you, Lawrence. And this is the one, I think this is a big topic we understand there's the charging hardware, that's great, but there's getting it in the ground, and how do you do that and setting yourself up? And Yona or Lawrence, I would love for you guys to take this one.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the major aspects is, again, your site needs. It's what we talked about, the electrical capacity and infrastructure, and whether or not you can accommodate the new charging stations that are coming in. So make sure, again, you have a supplier that knows your needs and is able to help you and support you throughout that. Installation support as well, we talked about. But there's also the vendor installation requirements that we need to consider at your dealership. So with different suppliers, they have different wiring connections and all of that. And over the years, we've seen some interesting installation methods. So make sure you have that one point of contact again with your supplier to kind of do some sanity checks on what you need and how it will be installed. And again, clearance requirements. We've seen some of that for servicing. It must be accessible for the service personnel to access it. So clearance requirements are very important. Selecting optimal locations for your placement. So whether you want it in the show floor, service area, customer parking, etc. These are different locations that you can consider and what would be optimal for your business and your customers. And also, yeah,
sorry. I was gonna say
yeah.
I am like when it comes to doing anything around the house and it involves tools, I'm not the guy. I have a brand new toolbox. It's still brand new. Like one of the things I want to know is like for a guy like me coming in, what's the support that a company like Flow or what to look for in that support aspect?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, actually, we can do a site assessment right on site to see what your needs are, and we bring in an electrical contractor as well to help support you. And if you have any existing electrical designs available, we can review that for you and just kind of provide you first steps to go from here. So again, and in terms of location, we can there are the OEM requirements, and then if you need something in addition to that, we can help you with that as well. Yeah, and in terms when it comes to installation, also modularity of the system is important to essentially reduce your installation time and thus reducing your cost overall. So this is something to consider when it comes to installation and just taking the first steps towards your needs there.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a Flow presentation if we didn't talk a little bit about what we can do at Flow to assist dealerships. And I would say starting it off, like we talked about earlier in our during the presentation, and was comprehensive portfolio. I know, for example, there are some OEMs that have advised their dealerships on, hey, there's one supplier for your level 2, another supplier for your DC fast charging. Lawrence, can you speak to the importance of just having everything in one house?
Absolutely. The biggest thing is ease of transaction, and being able to focus on one supplier to fit all your charging needs is truly beneficial. And believe me, it's going to make your finance team really happy as well. The range of charging that Flow is able to provide, you see here, starts with our level 2 home chargers, which will charge a vehicle in more than 3 months than a level 1 that we mentioned before. This charges at roughly about 7.2 kilowatts, obviously varying battery sizes, but this is your true home charge. You don't really need more power than that to quote unquote fill up your car every night. Then our level 2 public chargers, you're looking at Core Plus here. This is the workhorse. This is ideal for any kind of parking lot, for dealerships, especially with level 2. Now this is available in 7.2 all the way up to 19.2 kilowatts at that 80 amp level that Yomna mentioned before. And then diving into the larger chargers in the DC fast charging, you see Smart DC here. Again, this charger is a absolute workhorse. DC chargers tend to be the ones that go down the most. Our network of DC chargers is well above the average and almost hitting near perfect scores at 98% with global uptime. And the last one you see is our DC ultra fast charger. We can spend an entire webinar talking about this charger. It's super fun and exciting with motorized cable management, indicator lights, independent UI screens, modular design with a monolithic concept of installation. J3400 or NAC solutions forthcoming as we see that roll out. 200 sensors inside the unit to start to predict when the charger will go down, have an AI machine learning built into it, water markers, etc. I don't want to go on a diatribe because I would like to.
I'll say this: if there's
open the floor a bit, and maybe Andy, I'll put another one of these together to give me the opportunity to nerd out about Flow Ultra a bit.
I was going to say, if anyone's on the call or is going to be watching this very shortly, we are going to be at NADA coming up next week. So you can actually see it live in person. And Lawrence will nerd out with you.
Yomna will be right there beside me, making sure I give all the correct information as well.
I don't think we need to belabor it a little bit. We've talked a lot about 98% uptime, but I think we talked about uptime, but how does it come back to flow?
Yeah, Andy, and I think the next slide is actually the one that is going to shock people. Where can you go to the performance slide, Andy? Actually, where we actually talk about our performance warranty and how we actually put our money where our mouths are. Everybody needs a warranty on an EV charger. If someone is buying an EV charger without a warranty, don't buy it. But our performance warranty takes that to the next level. We guarantee 98% uptime, calculated by a standard that mimics the government set standard for the NEVI program. We do it on a per port level, is how we calculate it. And guess what? If we don't hit that 98% uptime, we're going to refund up to 50% of the cost of that warranty every year. It also guarantees 24-hour response time, covers travel time, covers vandalism. This is your all-encompassing warranty. And quite honestly, in my humble opinion, and maybe a little biased, the best in the industry. And I'm truly excited to be able to present this to a customer, because this is how we alleviate the tensions when talking about uptime and reliability. So Flow's ability to continually check, we provide a preventative maintenance visit on the chargers as well, where we come in, tighten bolts, change filters, ensure everything's working properly, in addition to monitoring our stations 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, or 366 this year.
Yeah, and I think that's a great statement to make, Lawrence. Like, people, one of the concerns we brought up earlier in your text message back to your John dealership in that slide, the cost of the chargers. And, it's one thing to put up the money and, it's they protecting your investment, right? Like, it's several thousands of dollars here, right? I think the last thing you want to do is have to do a rip and replace. So
Absolutely.
And Lawrence, we've talked a lot about it, but just wanted to I think it's a good highlight to just show when we talk about network, what those network features are to the end user.
Yeah, absolutely. The network is potentially the most important part of this whole thing. It's not only the customer facing side of the charger, it's also the support side of the charger. So it's a fully encompassed situation where you're going to have recurring revenue. Your customers are going to be able to pull up to the charger, easily activate a charging session, be able to manage your chargers from an app or from a desktop portal, automated payment processing that goes directly into your bank account. We monitor the stations at our network operations center, which is 24 hours a day. We get flagged if something is beginning to go wrong with the charger, whether that's software or hardware. We're quickly able to act upon it, and that touches just on the support when you need it. And I'll open it to Yelena if you have anything else on the network side as well.
Yeah, no, I think you covered everything. But again, having that, a one-stop shop for everything is really important. There's no finger pointing. If you have the hardware separate from the network, if issues arise, who's done what, who's doing what. So there's no such thing. So just a one-stop shop, one point of contact to solve all your issues. So it's really important to know that.
Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken, you have an interesting analogy around coffee and how there's, sometimes there's a hardware provider solely, there's a software provider, and then there's a network operator. Do you remember that analogy?
I actually relate it to restaurants and hotels. And the way I do this is software companies are great at building software. Hotels are great at operating hotels. Restaurants are incredible at hospitality and providing great food, right? So let's consider that the hardware of it all. Now, as we go into it all, hotel restaurants leave something to be wanting, right? You walk into a hotel, you set the restaurant, it's meh, they do an okay job, right? So a hardware company, a software company, when you put them together and try to make this amalgamation of a product, tends not to be the greatest. Working with partners who are vertically integrated, such as Flow, focus 100% on EV charging. I said it before and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it 1,000 times if you come see me at NADA. But there's software companies, there's hardware companies, and then there's EV charging companies. And we truly pride ourselves on being an EV charging company.
Damn, Lawrence, couldn't say it better myself. And I know this is one of the favorite slides, so I'm gonna let whoever jumps in first gets it.
All
Think
right. Yeah, so we have roaming agreements with multiple different EV charging networks. So basically, if you have a membership with one vendor that you are charging in another station, then you're able to actually use their app interchangeably. So this is one of our biggest differentiation as well, having that large network and integration with other networks as well. Lawrence, did you want to add on to that?
No, you hit the nail on the head, right? It goes back to our three pillars, right? Affordability, durability, and the point you just mentioned, Yomna, and accessibility.
And I think this is a great way to, before we go into questions, really wrap up, for people that are joining this call, listening to the call, what is it that Flow can really support them on as they're looking to bring in EV charging to their dealership?
Yeah, so we have one team for every aspect of your business. So we have a dedicated team for your consultation and planning, and we are really consultative when it comes to our approach. So just feel free to reach out to us to assess your site and your needs. And we have a team dedicated for incentives. We have a team dedicated for commissioning. So you have everything that you would need to complete your EV charging deployment.
And one more point is direct contacts. Yomna and I pride ourselves of being available for our customers, and this isn't just Yomna and I. This is our entire team. This is sales. This is our client integration. This is our service team. So having that openness and the open lines of communication is really a differentiator, especially when something's new and could be a little scary.
That's awesome, guys. Thank you. There's a lot of great points here, and I know our audience definitely appreciates it. We actually have a few questions, or at least one. The question is, how do we perform compared to ABB fast chargers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think performance can be viewed in a couple of different ways. And Yomna, please dive in here as well. But when you talk about performance, are we talking about speed of charge? Because that has to do with the amount of power that the charger's capable of. We have level 2 chargers that can charge as slowly as 6 amps, all the way up to 80 amps. And we have DC fast chargers that can be 50 kilowatts and scale down from there all the way up to 320 kilowatts. Now, again, if we talk about uptime, I personally don't know ABB's specific uptime statistics, but I can talk more so from an industry perspective. Whereas DC fast charging somewhere falls in line of uptime around 60 to 65%. I think ABB is a very quality hardware. I'm sure they are higher than that. But Flow, again, is at 98% and really recognized as the best, most reliable chargers in the industry in North America.
Yeah, and just to add to that, ABB is a great hardware, like Lawrence mentioned. ABB doesn't have their own network, and so this is really the biggest differentiation between us and ABB. But as a hardware, it is a great hardware. But they do need to integrate with another network in order for them to operate. But at Flow, we provide the full solution.
Thank you, guys. I think this was fantastic. I'm really excited. We're coming up to NADA, and we haven't answered your questions here. As Lauren said, he'll happily nerd out with you at our booth. We're going to be at 665-1N in the North Hall. So come visit us. Yomna will be there to keep him in check too, and fact check him. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for participating. Thank you again to Yomna and Lawrence. Really appreciate your effort on this. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Andy.
Thank
and thank you
you.
for everyone for joining, and looking forward to seeing and hearing from you.
Awesome.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
have a great one.